Hello YouTube and hello viewers, and welcome back to yet another episode of creating our community project. We're still working on our online system. It's a lot of work that we need to work on to get that actually working. However, today's pretty much the last session that we really need to do any web-based stuff. Now, what I've done, and I apologize for the late video because normally I record a little bit earlier, but what I've been doing is I actually put the web pages together for you as a download package. So I'm going to show you how to extract it and obviously put it into our HT docs so you can actually see that working. However, there are a few things that you might need to change inside that, so I'm going to show you how to do that. So without further ado, let's get started. So again, thanks very much guys for your massive support. I mean, we've hit 551 subscribers. I didn't even think this would ever happen in my life, but it's gradually growing, and I've got to thank you guys so much for this. And yeah, I can't really say thank you enough for the support that I'm getting right now with all of you guys and the channel. So where we left off last time is we got to the point of where we created our database. So we had things like our ID number, username and password and all that sort of jazz. And we pretty much just stopped there. Hold on, let me just close down Steam. Apologies. I keep forgetting to do that every time I switch on. So what I did for all of you, because I know coding is not something you guys are very familiar with, I actually put the web package together for you. So basically we're just going to stick it into a folder in our HT docs. I'm going to show you how to do that. And we need to set up certain things that will fit into your database. So we need to make sure that we change things that are relevant. And I'm going to show you exactly what you might need to change if you want to change something. It might be very similar to mine. You might have different names in your table. So for example, up here, they might be slightly different. So I'm going to show you how to change that in this video. So just quickly, what I have is a WinRAR file called web pages. I'll put that in the description below. So once I obviously upload the video, it'll be in the description below. It'll be on my Dropbox link, so it is all safe. I have virus scanned it and everything, so it's all safe. I mean, you can do it if you download it as well. Everything is all safe in there. And basically inside that file, there's a few things. So we've got things like DB Connect, so that's going to be our connection string into our database. That's the very important one we might need to change. We've also got a home page. I'll explain what that is later on. Index page, logout, and obviously a registry page. So we can actually make all the system work by just these files that I've created for you. Obviously there's a bit of style I've put in there for you as well, and a bit of JavaScript, just so we can see any errors and stuff. For example, if someone's putting something in there, it'll tell them that that's wrong or they need to do this and that. So I'll show you how that all works. So basically, what I need you to do is inside your HT docs. Okay, so inside your HT docs, we should have a few folders here. Actually, I want you to delete these folders. So we're actually going to delete them. We'll keep the index page because that's fine. At least that's the landing page. And what that looked like was this here. It just said, hello YouTube. So we can keep that there if you want. Or if you don't want to do that, you could quite simply actually just delete everything if you want. That's fine too. But basically, if we refresh this page, it's just going to say index. I mean, that's fine. We can do that. That's not much of an issue. So what I'd like you to do is we're going to open up the WinRAR file. Okay, so we're just going to open up that file of web pages, and you're just going to drag everything in. So we're just going to select everything and drag it into our HT docs. Now, we can't just, well, I can because I've set it up on my database, but if you just try to do this now and say, for example, you're like, okay, sound, I've put that in now. And let's say, for example, you go onto your index, so this section here, and you refresh. It'll work for me because I've set it up, but for some of you, it might say error because basically some of the code that I put in there has to connect to the database string that we've got. So I'm going to show you how to set that up. So if it does have this system, which I doubt it will do before you change anything, then there's something seriously wrong if it has worked perfectly for you, unless you've used the same username and password that I have and stuff like that. That might work. But if not, I'm going to show you how to change that right now. So open up your HT docs where all your files are. And the very first thing we want to look at is the dbconnect.php. Now this is the very important one that you need to change. So you just right click on that and edit with Notepad++. Remember, I've put that in my very first video. It's very important that you do have that program. It makes things 100 times more easier when you're working with files. So I'm going to open that up. And basically, there's just a few things I need you to change. So that will stay the same. Localhost will never change. That will always be how it is. The username will be root if you're using WAMP server. If you're using, for example, an external web host, then that would be the username that you chose for that external web host. The password is whatever you gave the database password. In my case, it's YouTube because this is for YouTube, so I don't mind showing that. And the next one, which is really important, is the database name. Now, this is the database that we created. So let me just show you what I mean by that. So basically, I'm on my PHP myadmin. Okay, so if you can't remember how to do that, remember just type in 127 and then your extension. And then basically on the end of that, you just put / PHP myadmin. Let's just get rid of all this jazz on here. So just PHP myadmin. And basically that will take you to your admin page. You might have to log in. Obviously just log in if it requires you to do so. And basically that little section where it's saying the database name, this is the database that you created. In this case, I've called it YouTube game. We did this in the previous video, so you need to find out what you called your database in your structure. So make sure that's correct. Remember, watch out for your cases. So if you got capital letters, lower cases, please be very wary about that. Otherwise, if you incorrectly spell it, for example, that will also throw an error. So make sure everything is how it should be and everything's in perfect order. So once that's all set up, you're pretty much ready to go. So we can have a look at the other files. So on the other files that we've got, let me just close all these down. I don't know if I've got them all open. Okay, the next one we've got is the index.php. So if you open that with Notepad++, I'm just going to explain a few things to you so it makes a little bit of sense to you. And just so you get the grasp of how this all works. So what we have is a PHP string here. You'll notice it's above the HTML stuff because basically we want to run this before any other script runs. Very important that we do this, that we have all this script before or after our PHP stuff. Now what we have is a session variable. Basically this is making like a cookie, you could say. I'm sure you've probably heard of cookies on your computer. Basically it sets a cookie and it will assign a username to that cookie. And you can see it down here. All right, so you can see that it does work down below. This include once is basically saying, okay, we want to have our database connected to this page, so our index.php page. So obviously that needs to be the correct spelling. So if we go back here, so it needs to be exactly the same spelling as that, otherwise it won't work. And basically this if statement here is checking for a session. So it's saying if the user session does not equal nothing, then obviously we can go into the home.php. I'll explain what that is in a minute. So basically if the user is logged in and hasn't logged out, it'll automatically send them to that page there, which is the home.php, and we'll have a look at that page in a second. This section here, okay, so this one here is looking at basically the login of the username and password that we have. So if we just scroll down, we can see we've got a form going on here. And basically that form is asking for an email address and a password. So if we just go back to my local host, we can see what it looks like. So you can see there's the email and there's the password. So that's all it's doing, is just looking at this email address and that password. And if we click on this button, it's then going to do this PHP code here. It's going to look at the email, trim it down. We're using these real escape strings because I've used hashing on the passwords. They're very safe. And then basically it's going to look at the connection. So it's going to look at the database and it's going to select. Now this is a MySQL command. So it's going to select the user ID, email, and password from users where the email is equal to this email. Okay, so the $email, i.e. this one here. All right, so it's looking to see, is there actually someone there with a user ID, email, and password and actually has that email address. And if it is right, then it's going to create a session and then send the person to this page called home.php. If not, then it's going to just throw an error saying, okay, well, your email or password does not exist in the system. And then the rest down here is just basically some HTML stuff, I mean, you can look at that. There's loads of tutorials of HTML forms. I mean, it's not very difficult to put one of those together. There's so many websites that will show you how to do that. So this is pretty much the important part. So let's see that working. So let's go on to my website. And if I had to put in some JARG email address and some JARG password, so I just tapped a lot of buttons and say sign in. Oh, see, there's the JavaScript. So we say at blah blah, sign in. It should say to me, well, the email or password does not exist, because if we look at our database, go into YouTube game and go into our users, there is nothing in there with that username and password. So obviously it's not going to work at all. No matter how many different combinations I try throw in there, it's not going to make anything. Okay? So what we are going to look at is the make account button. So this basically brings us into the register.php page you can see up here. So let's have a look at that. So let's open up our htdocs and let's have a look at the register.php. So we're just going to edit with Notepad. Now you can see this is quite a big PHP script, very similar to the index page, but just with a few extra stuff inside there. So what we have is obviously a session, so we need to make sure there is someone in there. The reason why we run sessions is that we don't allow people that should not be able to see that page see it. So that's why sessions are rather important. Obviously does the same thing. If it's not equal to anything, then send them. If the user's already logged in, then send them to the PHP. Obviously we need to have our database because we need to start putting stuff in. And basically this section, this if statement, all of this section here is going to put information into the database. And I'm going to explain it quite carefully, so I'm going to do it line by line so at least you understand what each one is. I should have really commented it for you guys, but I got a bit lazy because I ran out of time. Sorry. So what we have is the username. So basically this is saying we're going to make a variable called username. We're going to look at the string, and then basically we're going to post to username. And basically if we go down to the form, we can see we've got the form here for username, and look at its name. It's called username there. Okay, so we can have that information if we wanted to, so the username. And then we do the same for the name, the email, and the password. So if we go back to the web browser, you can see we've got username, email address, and password. So the things that we require for the system. Now you could have, for example, re-enter password, so you can check against that, but you might have to do a little bit of research into PHP, how to compare the two values against each other. You could add, I don't know, different things in there like the address and stuff, but I don't know why you'd need all that. But I can show you how to add that into this video. So basically, we make a new password. Okay, now basically the password is going to look at the password he created, but it's going to use this hash. Now this is a PHP function that will turn this into a hash. And I'll show you exactly what that means in a second. So I'll show you what it looks like in the database so you can understand what that's all about. Then this one here is looking to see if someone's already got that email address. So we're just checking to see if that email is already in the database. So it's basically looking at the email from the users table where the email is equal to this email address that someone's put in. And I'll show you how that's working in a second once we go through all of this. So basically it's just going to check all the emails, and then basically it's going to say, well, if, sorry, I skipped a session. So this bit here is making a random key for us, and this is basically a key that the user would have that is individual to them. So that's not the unique ID, but remember inside our database, we added, let's just go into the database so I can show you. We added this one called register key. So basically I just manually put it in for now, but what you would do is, say for example someone buys your game, you would give them that reg key and they could put it in. But for now, we're just manually doing it. So it's just easier for us for the database, so we're just going to manually do it. And basically we just, once we've made that key, we're then going to hash it up with a 512 encryption with a value, and obviously this random numbers here, and then basically it just turns into a hash. We're just making a status for the user saying he's going to be online, so once he makes an account he's automatically going to be online. And is he banned? Obviously not, because he's just made an account, so it'll be a bit harsh if we ban him straight away. Then this if statement here is basically saying, well, okay, if the count, so remember the count was here, so it's saying check the email is less than number of rows. So if it is 0, so there's no other email addresses, then we can put something into our database. So this line is very, very, very important. Okay, very, very important. So it's saying insert into users. So that's our table. So if you've named that different, then make sure you change the names of these, otherwise it's not going to work. Then we've got our names inside our columns. So username, email, password, reg key, status, and band. I mean, if you've got more, you'd start adding more onto that section. And then we want to put the certain values, so whatever we have in each one of these variables. So we want to put the username, so what he puts in, we want to put in the username section. Email, make sure they're also together, right? So they paired, otherwise it's not going to work correctly. So the email address they put in, obviously it's going to go into this email column. The password is going to be the new password, so when we hash the password up, so that's going to go into the database. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold. Then the reg key, so this what we created here is going to go into the reg key system. The status, which we've made over here, so it's going to be online, so status and status. And then band and band, and obviously we've said band, which is no here, and that's where the dollar variable comes into there. And then this bit is just messages that's going to pop out to say, okay, well, if everything's fine, then you've successfully registered. If not, then there's an error. And then other than that, sorry, the email is already taken. And then just below again is just some form stuff for our username and email and password. For example, if you wanted to add, I don't know, another field, you could quite just easily copy that, paste it underneath, and then all we have to do is just change the name to whatever. That's definitely not going to be a password though. That's going to be text. So we could just say text on that one. Yeah, there's form control, placeholder. We'll just call this, I don't know, blah for now. And then you could say it's required if you want. And the name's definitely not going to be password. Obviously you need to change that to the same as here, but just lower caps. And let's see if this actually works. So let's open up and test. So let's refresh the page. And there you go. So you can see you can add more fields onto the system if you wanted to. But then obviously if you do that, you then need to update the information up here. So you want to make a new variable for that section. Then you want to add it in to this section down here. If you wanted to do that, so just be very wary about that one. I'm just going to delete that because we don't really need it. Okay. So let's see that system working. So let me refresh this. Now we got rid of that. Okay, so, oh, hello. I don't know why that hasn't worked. That should disappear. Yeah, I've got rid of it. Sometimes it's a bit iffy sometimes. I don't know why. Save over that. Refresh. Oh, I don't know why that's not going away. It's not index.html. That's why. Let's just see if I go through this way if it disappears. So make an account. There you go. It's gone now. I don't know why. Sometimes it bugs out. I'm not too sure why it does that, but it just bugs. So let's make an account. So I'm just going to call, let's go Waza, and then I'm just going to put a blog email in. So blah, 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 at blah, blah, blah.com. And then I'm just going to put, actually I can't put blah, blah, blah. Let's do 123 at 123.com. And then the password, I'm just going to go 123. Probably not the best. I mean, you can make a script that can make sure that you put the right values in, password strengths and stuff like that. You can all look into that type of stuff if you want. So let's create the account, and it should say that I'm successfully registered. Now what we want to do is we want to have a look at the database. So let's go to the database. Let's click on users again, and hopefully everything's filled out. So now we can see everything's there. You might have number 1 here. I was testing quite a few things, so my UID has gone quite high. But basically, you should have started at 1. We have the username, which is obviously Waza. The password, as you can see, it's hashed up. So whoever's in charge of the database can't really, or they can, but can't really see what your password is. Then we've got the reg key. So this is what you'd give them to claim the game if they're paying for it, for example. You can see he's online. He's got an email address of blah, blah, blah. He's not banned, and currently he's got 0 kills and 0 wins. So those are the extra things that we added into the database. Notice I didn't put those into my script because they're just values of 0 anyways. So I didn't need to add it anywhere into this register section. There was no need for it because they're already going to be set to 0. And we'll update that once they kill someone and etc. So we'll just keep that in mind. So once we've registered, okay, the next thing is to log in. So I think I was 123 at 123.com, I think it was, and then 123. So once I sign in, it should now take me to my homepage. So here we go. So I've made a homepage for you. So if you're really lazy and didn't want to make that, what I've put on there for you, and we're going to fill these in anyways in our tutorials to come, is basically just a title for our website called Where's the YouTube, just there. Stats. So we're actually going to fill this page with the player's stats. So you can see I'm currently logged in as Wazza. So we'll put all the stats and stuff in there. Server statuses, so we can have a look at all the servers to see which ones are online and offline and etc. So we'll have that running. And then friends. So I'm going to show you how to add friends and things in the game, and we can have a look at them on the online system here. Now you can see this one's called home.php. So if we go onto this page here, onto our home.php, edit with Notepad++, you can see this really is just a basically it's HTML really. We've only got a very small PHP section where we're just getting the username and the session. And then we've got another PHP script down here just to get the username. So the username is just down here. So remember the username is referring to our table. So just remember that. So whatever you called your username in the table, you need to make sure you update that. And that shows this. So your username instead of email. I mean, I could have put in, I can show you, if I had to put in, for example, email here. Okay, so if I had to put in email, hopefully this will work. So save, and let's refresh this page. It now shows my email address instead of my username. So, I mean, depending on what you want to put on there, you can. But I prefer username. It looks a lot more posh. So we're just going to keep that as that. So let's just refresh that and hopefully it doesn't bug out. It has bugged out. Thank you very much. Okay. And that's pretty much the online system working now with web pages and how do we access certain features and stuff. And obviously when we log out, that will take us out and obviously back to our sign-in page. Now, normally what would happen is you'd make this very graphically nice if you're making a game, for example. So you'd have a graphic in the background. I wasn't really too bothered about that because I wanted the functionality to work for you guys. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So just a reminder before you get onto your own antics with working on the system, the very most important thing to change is your dbconnect.php. Very, very important, guys. Please make sure you update this to whatever your database information is. Otherwise, this whole system won't work. So you've got to make sure you update that. And then there's just a few bits and pieces. For example, in the register page, if you want to update, so table names, column names, and etc., you may do so. If you do get stuck, please don't hesitate to drop me a message. I mean, I know a lot of you aren't programmers. That's why I sort of put this together for you. So use it to your liking as much as you like. But again, remember, if you have a problem, let me know in the messages. Preferably, I suppose you could put in the comments if you give me a link to like an image or something, that's fine. But don't throw the whole code block into the comment section because that's not going to help. So at least just drop an image or something like that. So that's pretty much brings us to the end of that session. Again, apologies for the late video. I had to set this all up for you guys. Remember, it will be in the description below. So if you do require the files, it will be there. Do not panic. Make sure you extract all of it into your htdoc. So delete everything in there and then put the new stuff in there. So it just makes it a little bit more easier for you. And then just make sure you change the DB Connect. Again, thank you very much for joining me for this session. Hopefully this has sort of given you a good idea of how an online system does work by going to different pages, bringing up the user page as well, which is really important. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that. If you really did, make sure you hit that like button. If you have not yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button. If you really, really like the channel and you want to support me, just above is the link for my channel support. drop me a donation. That would be great. Thank you very much. Nice taking you for this session, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.